Welcome back to Sika Strength and welcome back to the Sika Style News Show, brought to you by our S&C camp and weightlifting camp in Portugal in Titan Fitness Algarve. So we ran our weightlifting camp there last year and it was a great success. Now we're rerunning the weightlifting camp and expanding that out into a strength and conditioning for both athletes and coaches. If you're a coach, be prepared to train, however. We'll go through theory, technique, sessions, conditioning. Obviously not conditioning sessions for the weightlifters. The dates for the S&C are the 24th, 25th and 26th. And for the weightlifting, it's the 27th up until and including the 31st of May. If you want to book your spot, please email us at sikastrength@gmail.com. And on with the news show. Starting off, we've got the LeeDangun section of the news show, formerly known as the Archer Antropop section of the news show. Now, LeeDangun, as we know, is moving up in weight class and the gains are coming in super hot. So this is 240 for a set of 5, which is a new 5RM. He didn't say how much this was, but I think we'd seen like 240 for a double or a triple before. So this is crazy progress. So he's probably somewhere around like 75 kilo body weight now if he's moving up, and he's certainly filled out into that.
We always used to talk about this as like the weekly delve into insanity. But to be honest, it's gone so far beyond that now. I don't know what to refer to LeeDangun's training as. Like, he'd always be massive high volume on squats, massive high volume on deadlifts, doing crazy weights for a very light athlete and having an amazing physique. But 240 for 5, I feel, is a step beyond what we've ever seen.
So he also did 220 kilos for a set of 10, which is huge improvements. So he's obviously kind of gone super high rep. He went for the 20 RM at 185 and now he's just moving down through the reps. But this is obviously over a pretty short time frame, over the last couple of weeks and couple of sessions. So this 220 by 10 is moving very, very casual. So this is an insane weight to be moving. This is a 73 kilo lifter and he's not even really filled out that 73 kilos yet. So I think I reckon we'll see at least a 275 or 280 from LeeDangun, 1RM.
I think in the next couple of weeks we're going to probably see 10 reps at 230 plus. I think we'll see another 10 RM.
Yeah, I'd certainly.
Yeah, it's insane.
So they also have some snatches. So we worked up to 140 kilos for some double attempts. Like, I'm not going to lie, as much as I like LeeDangun, Young, some of these doubles are a little bit suspect, and I've been suspect in making doubles before, but there is a line where we joke about in weightlifting where you say as long as you make the last rep it's a make, but I'm not even sure he's making the last rep on some of these 140 doubles. However, he's put up the 2 sets of 2 at 140 and I'm sure he knows best himself if he's making them. So first set, guaranteed, perfect. The next 2 sets are a bit if I was coaching Lee, I'd be like, Lee, what the f are you doing?
It's a funny one. It tends to be like a cultural thing or a gym-based thing where that matters or it doesn't matter. Obviously, we really care about it here that people are making those reps. But you'll see it even in their training hall. Most people, when they were doing doubles and triples, are doing them like that, and it doesn't seem to matter. Mm-hmm. And I know with the Japanese national team as well, very much the same way. Like, we jokingly say, like, missy, make. But in their case, it seems to be makey.
Yeah, like I'm sure he knows what's going on here. So his snatch, obviously, he needs like at least, he did 152, so he needs to be at least into 160s and the late 190s, if not 200s, for a medal. So wishing him all the best and can't wait to see the rest of the progress. Here we also have his teammate Parky Young. She's squatting 250 kilos. You might remember her from the heaviest female weightlifter squat on video at 270 last year, and this 250 is looking pretty good.
The scary thing for me here is when we get to the 240 kilo squat, how fast and how easy that 240 looks. Mm-hmm. Like 250 looks very good. Positionally, it's pretty much perfect. But 240 is absolutely insane. It literally looks like an 80% effort on her part.
She's doing a few reps on the way up, even at 220, she still does that double. And the 250, bit of a grinder, so not quite the same as her 270. Like, she's obviously had a long year of training competitions. So I'd imagine, so we're in March now, so she is obviously a hot favourite. If she gets sent for Korea, which I assume she will, for a good chance at a medal. So I assume this is the start of a big training block at starting with that kind of 250. I'd love to see another squat PR from her, but she is very young still. I think she's 20 or 21. So there's a lot of time left for her to add to that 270, if she even needs to add to that 270. Alexei Lovchev out of the shadows with a 300 kilo 3-second pause back squat. 300 kilos obviously to him that's more. That's like 4 seconds. Absolute child's play.
I'm not going to lie. This is the most legitimate paused rep at 300 kilos I've ever seen. This is the best paused 300 kilo squat I've ever seen. It's absolutely insane. This is what it looks like when some people are kind of building up and they're loosening out their hips, and maybe at 100 kilos they do a pause for a few seconds, just to loosen up. This does not look like 300 kilos.
It actually doesn't. But we know Alexei is this strong. We know he's incredible. To be honest, in my opinion, he was probably one of the best supers who had a chance of pushing Lasha in terms of at least the clean and jerk and maybe the total. But, it would have pushed. I think Lasha could have always taken him, but he would have really pushed them. But unfortunately, he set the world record in 2015, had a little oopsie holiday. Then, obviously, the whole debacle with Russia happened. Then he dislocated his elbow in a national competition in Russia. He seemed to rehab quite well, but we haven't seen him do more than 230, and I don't know if he has much motivation to really do that, so it's unclear of kind of what he's planning to do. But this 300 is, as you say, I don't think I can think of a more legit 300 kilo pause squat. Now, here we've got Lucas weightlifting, and as we know, we're huge fans of a couple of countries' technical model, places like Ukraine, South Korea, and Germany are one of those ones. As one of them we're lucky enough to have experience. We've had some experience with some of the German coaches, and this from Lucas weightlifting is sublime technique.
We were just talking about this earlier on and referring back to that brief time I got to spend with those coaches, but I won't spend quite a bit of time with them. And the clean in particular here is just so vertical. Like, it is the exact model that they were trying to coach maybe 8 years ago when they were over here. It's great to see. It's great to see those kind of large scale, national level technical models being carried through to the younger generation in this case. Obviously phenomenal weights here, phenomenal performance.
So it was actually the German Weightlifting Federation that spearheaded the bar tracking software, and they had the velocity monitoring and a lot of that stuff with it, and they've done a lot of data on that, and they are very keen on technical models and technique being super important. From what we've heard, there is none or very little drugs, and this is what they're saying. I'm not saying that's what I believe or anything like that, or either way. I don't really have a major opinion right now, but what they say currently in German weightlifting, of course in the past that was not the case, but current German weightlifters don't use, he said, because they just get tested a lot and they're really diligent with it. And I think some of the numbers reflect that. Of course, you can never really know, but they rely on a very intense periodization style of programming, a lot of higher reps. They like their pulls, they like a little bit of assistance work, and they kind of have certain numbers that they like to look for from what we saw for that particular section. But technical model to them is absolutely paramount, and this is something we're always talking about, and I believe it more than ever in weightlifting. Perfect technique is the most important thing. If you want to really realize your potential as a weightlifter, no matter what that is, maybe it's 100, 120, or maybe it's 170, 220, perfect technique is the most important way of getting there.
Technique number one.
Except for the power jerk. So here we've got a video from Squat Jerk Journalist. This is a comparison of Li Huanhua. I think someone told me I was saying Li wrong, but I thought it was Li Huanhua, and that's what Dr. Steph was saying. But either way, this comparison of him when he was an 81 pulling 250, and now is a 102 pulling 300. The 300 is a hook grip as well, by the way.
Yeah, it's so when you watch this video first, you see the initial one at a lighter body weight, and it is moving significantly slower, and then 50 kilos heavier, moving significantly faster. No straps. In my opinion, the positions are actually slightly better in the second one, although it's difficult to see because of those angles. But especially the second pull, just after he passes his knees, is so much faster, and like the finishing of that pull is so much better.
What's kind of funny about this, in the comments, Rat Matt Irwin commented and just said Chad. It's just pretty cute. So the idea of doing heavy deadlifts in weightlifting is quite an interesting one. Obviously, Team China take that far beyond what any other team ever does in terms of heavy pulls and high frequency of them. So the logic behind that is to have a very strong back. The issue with that, though, is if you were to look at muscle physiology, there's an argument to be made that moving those pulls really slowly isn't good for weightlifting. Now, the long-term implications of that are up for debate, but there's certainly short-term implications of that. Maybe not from a muscle physiology point of view, but in terms of fatigue point of view, you are certainly going to get a lot of fatigue at super heavy weights like this. 300 kilos is very heavy for any weight to be pulling, even if you're a super heavyweight. And there is going to be an impact on your speed and your kind of positions for, a week, 10 days or more after you do those heavy pulls. But from what we see from Chinese, they do a lot of them. So obviously they acclimatize those really heavy pulls, but there is some back and forth with that. Now, being strong is very, very important for weightlifting and having a good strong pull. I know Gabriel, who's in the comments, who said too slow. Also, before the Olympics, he said he pulls 305 and he said it moves pretty fast. So it's not that the heavy pulls are the problem, it's just that the heavy pulls too slow are more of the problem.
There is an interesting thought experiment here as well so obviously like fiber type shifting or biasing yourself more towards slower fiber type is what the main argument behind this is. But there's an interesting thought experiment that if you're really biasing development of fast twitch muscle fiber through some other means, that maybe this mightn't be so detrimental to your performance.
Oh, back into South Korea, we've got Won Jong-bam, I feel like that's not right, who we saw training when we were in Korea last year in the National Training Center, and I'd never heard of him before, but he was one of the two lifters who really stood out to me in terms of technique. And he's a 96 kilo weightlifter, and this is 210 kilos, looking pretty pedestrian.
Yeah, what I really love here is maintaining the hook grip on his pull under. Like his pull under is so, I'm saying plunder like it's one word.
Plunder.
But his pull under is so good. It's so sharp. And this is one of the main things we fix in people's technique all the time, is that kind of opening of the hand or the lack of activation as they're pulling under and the lack of focus on being aggressive and pulling themselves down. He does a great job here of holding that hook grip, pulling himself under very, very well.
Look, no one wants to talk about it anymore, and a lot of you probably don't remember because you might not have been around, but there was a time where South Korea couldn't make any jerks in competition, and it's their hidden past, and no one wants to acknowledge it, but their jerks have gotten way better. And I know there's a new head coach, and we had the pleasure to meet him. You can actually see him walking along the background, a white belt in jiu-jitsu, I think. Was he white belt or blue belt?
I think blue belt maybe.
And he also did Korean wrestling as well, which is you wear a belt and you just fuck people around the place. And he was massive, so I think if he got his hands on you. But he's a new head coach. They seem to have a lot of respect for him. Incredibly nice man, and a shame we didn't get to spend more time with him. And that's one of the times where I wish I could just speak fluent languages like Korean, just have a chat there. But that aside, there's Won's 210. Here we've got Katatori Nishi Ibea's 190 rack jerk.
And whatever you nailing that performance, he nails this rack jerk.
Look at the quads in him.
Look at the lockout, Garth. It is sharp. This is razor-edged rack jerking.
Yeah, you're always bringing up people's lockouts now because I just remember a problem. You just keep bringing it up.
I feel like you're being triggered by it. Nah, this is absolutely gorgeous.
I love when a weightlifting gym has a rack jerk set up where it's like, this is the rack jerk and no one is touching this and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, where the whole building could be dismantled around it and there'd still be those two blocks.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for it. High volume, medium rep jerks are the best way to get better at jerks. Just hit that volume. It's heavy jerks are useful for a certain amount of time, but just building that volume is one of the best ways. And, rack jerks just make that so much easier. The rack is great, but it does hurt. It does hurt bringing down the barbell. It hurts.
Absolutely. And as well, you can just do so many more sets when you're not having to worry about re-racking the bar every time.
Oh, 100%. And if you add up all those percentages of better quality sets over time, you're going to end up with a better quality lift. So we've got Monika Marash from Poland, Team Poland, obviously a long-term great nation in weightlifting, been around for a long time. Here's a 120 kilo clean. She is normally around like 73 kilo lifter. She had a quad injury, maybe she might have had a tendon injury or she might have torn one of the muscles, but she cleans this 120 kilos very pedestrian.
Yeah, it's funny. The pull doesn't look insanely easy on this, but by God, the stand up out of the bottom position looks insanely easy.
Yes.
I feel like she has a massive front squat.
There's loads of very cool weightlifting gyms in Poland. You see a lot of them with their lifters, so it's very, very cool to see. They've obviously a big history of that. There's a great book from Polish Weightlifting. It's Trials of a Professional Weightlifter. You can buy it from the website. We did a review years ago on it. Incredible book. The Polish technique and programming, big on technique, obviously. They have their own kind of technical model that they like. And the lifter's name I cannot place, but I think he lives in Canada right now. But if you can find that book, it's a great read for weightlifters. Here we've got Arlie Mendez at the Pan Americans doing 170 205 as an 89. So not
Right
gold
up
medal.
there.
Yeah. It's not. He's not what he used to be yet.
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 It's still a bit out from the Olympics as well. Look, with Arlie's technique, Arlie has technique that works phenomenally well for him and his particular body shape. But I feel like a lot of people will see him lifting and they try and emulate the same thing, because sitting that low at the beginning of your start position feels great. And in his case, it works very well because he shoots his knees back, gets to that vertical shin position very, very well. But a lot of people, and we see this all the time, people will try and start their snatch in a similar way that he does, where his hips are super low. You get a lot of leg drive off the floor and it feels very, very good off the floor. But for most people, unless you're as skilled as Arlie and have that same kind of build, you're just not going to be able to get your knees back quick enough to make sure the barbell sweeps backwards as you pull it off the floor.
So Jason Lopez from Colombia won this particular competition. He attempted, no he didn't, he did 180 snatch, equaling LeeDangun's world record, but I haven't been able to find any videos. Jason's clean and jerk isn't quite up to snuff either. I think he did 207. You know, when we've got Carlos and Nino lifting to the 220s, it's a huge gulf. 2017 Arlie would have put some damage on those boys, but we haven't quite seen him yet. Never really got an answer for what happened. But there's a translation from his post here, and it says, "Stand up again and again until lambs become lions."
Nice.
And that's from, I don't know if it's from a King Arthur movie or something. If anyone knows, it's really ringing a bell, but I can't quite place it. Here we've got LeeDangun of China with a 170 kilo hang snatch, above the knee hang snatch.
He has lat development that makes it look like he has 45-degree angles going out to his arms. It makes no sense. This hang position really shows how developed his upper back is.
So in weightlifting, if you can fill out your weight class with as much muscle and as little fat as it is required to live, that's the goal. And it's like muscle maxing is what LeeDangun has done for his weight class.
Yeah.
Like this is, you know, that's what you'd hope your lifter is looking like. That's what you're like. If you're coaching a national team, you just hope that's what one of your lifters are going to look like.
I remember we were talking to a weightlifter on the podcast a good few years ago. I don't know, was it Ritvers? But they used to refer to the accessory work as musculation work. And that suits it perfectly well.
Yes, Ritvers said it was musculation work, yes. Yep, so LeeDangun, unfortunately, probably aren't going to see him at the Olympics this year. We'll probably see him in Thailand. I'm sure we'll see him in Thailand. But realistically, if he wanted Team China to send him, he'd need to do like 185, 225 or something, which I think he could do, but I don't think he's going to do, if that makes sense to you.
There is only one more event left, isn't there?
Yep, Thailand, yeah. There can be only one. And none of them are going to the 89s from China. Still with the Pan Americans, we've got Nessie de Homez with this 81. She's a 121 kilo snatch, 81 kilo lifter from Ecuador. Nessie's been around for quite a while and great technique, superb.
Yeah, I think the big standout thing here is not that massive over pulling at the top. Like no real lean back, not the laying at the top of that extension for too long at all. Does a great job of pulling under, and it's so good.
Yeah, very, very aggressive pull under. Nice, normal, dynamic, static start. Nothing crazy. Hips starting top down, but doesn't pull it immediately. Make sure she's in a good position. Her back and her arms are taut. She's a strong back position. And then she pulls, brings the bar back into her really aggressive change in speed from second pull to third pull. So hitting all the hallmarks of a great lift. And yeah, very, 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 very great lift. Yeah. So superb speed under, which is obviously paramount in weightlifting. Here we've got Petr Asanowiak from Belarus. He's got this 170 kilo block snatch. It looks like 180 for some reason, but he said 170, and I'm sure he knows best.
It is absolutely bloody gorgeous.
As all his lifts are.
This is this is just watching for sheer pleasure lifting.
Mm-hmm.
It is like what good music does to your ears, this should do to your eyes. It is lovely.
We have seen Petter do 180, I think, from blocks, maybe from the floor as well. I'm pretty sure we've seen him do it from the floor. He's in the 89s. I'm not sure if he's in the top 10 just yet. I think he might be. So obviously the top 10 from Europe are the ones who go, but it's I hope he's there. He was there in 2016. I can't remember if he was there in the 2020 Olympiad, but a fantastic lifter. We also have this 190 kilo clean and jerk from him in kind of what you'd put in a textbook for a clean and jerk.
Yeah, I think this is even more aesthetically pleasing than the snatch from blocks. Obviously, a lot of people snatch from blocks looks great. When you see a full clean and jerk being done like this, he is the ultimate technician, I think.
They love the low blocks in Belarus as well. So 190 kilos, great split jerker, times the barbell really well also. So hopefully, I'd love to see him at the Olympics and see if he could do some good lifts. Now, here we've got Mahmoud Hosni. He's an Egyptian weightlifter, 89 kilos, and here's a very aggressive 270 kilo back squat.
It's insane how powerful this back squat is.
At 89.
Yeah, like this looks like how a super heavy would squat that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so good. He also doesn't have any weird like quirks where he's incredibly short legs and really long back or anything like that. Looks like a very kind of standard run-of-the-mill build, but insane power in the legs.
Yeah, you know what? He doesn't look like he's built for amazingly for weightlifting or any generic style of weightlifting physique you might think.
Yeah.
He's also not incredibly well muscled. Like, it's not like he's out of shape, obviously, but he just looks like if you saw him in the street, you wouldn't pick him out as someone who could move 270 that fast, high bar.
No, like when you look at someone like Ehab or whatever, you look at them and you're like, oh, obviously that's a weightlifter. Incredibly strong, incredibly powerful. He had a very, very short torso, which kind of didn't work quite as well for some of the movements in weightlifting, but you'd expect him to be that powerful. In this case, this power it's like a sleeper build.
In the 20th century, they would have called these Olympic squats. You know, it's
Yes.
like that the reference wasn't just high bar, but it was like full depth, high bar, upright. And I feel like that's when we need to call these again an Olympic squat.
Should bring that back.
Like, he's squatting as low as he can squat anatomically. It's high bar, it's fast, it's a big weight. Like, that's what they call them, like the York magazine, like an Olympic squat. Whereas, like, now you could squat high bar, but if you were like John Hack, for example, you'd be squatting to below parallel, which is his competition, so it's not a rag on him or whatever. But these aren't the same thing, you know? Like, it's not the same. You know, this is what squatting is, in my opinion. IMO.
Corporate wants you to find the difference between these two squats.
There's no difference. So here we've got Manasad, Sirian weightlifter, moving 340 with serious speed. Incredible speed.
This looks like...
Sorry, 335.
335. I've never seen this weight move like that.
Yeah, he said 340, but it can't be 340.
Yeah. It's very different as well where, like, this is very clearly a clean deadlift. Like, those knees sweeping back off the floor. You see powerlifters do weights like this, obviously tearing them off the ground, but their knees stay really far forward. The bar deviates forward in that kind of initial first pull, and you just get a lot more speed out of it. It's just how the deadlift is versus how a clean deadlift is. A clean deadlift is inherently there to get you in the best position to pull under the clean, but this is so easy.
Now, moving on from our weightlifters, we have got Oliver Helander, who is a Finnish javelin thrower. And he's just gotten this little compilation of him doing some nice, honest-to-God strength training. It's just great to see athletes just doing normal strength training, like full range of motion lifts in a controlled manner with weights that are appropriate, with good technique, no crazy combination of sets, and no circuits, no Bosu balls. Like, they're not doing those weird leg raise things. They're not doing something under some crazy tempo. He's just doing trap bar deadlifts, high bar squats, incline pressing, seal rows, dips, just some honest to God strength training in a really consistent controls form of S&C. Like, it's not the sexiest, but it's the best.
Yeah.
It's the bestest.
Legitimate weights too, like these kind of V-up variations, weighted V-ups, where he has 60 kilos, 60 kilos total, 30 kilos on his legs, 30 kilos in his hands. Like, these are heavy weighted exercises. Even these, the strict toes to bar, that's no joke. And a lot of people will look at athletes a lot of the time, and particularly javelin throwers compared to some of the other throwers, they're a bit longer, a bit leaner, and they'll say, oh, the weights aren't incredibly impressive. All of these weights you see being done here would be great if you were just a strength training athlete, particularly when he's a normal athlete or a track and field athlete doing his S&C. These are incredibly impressive weights. Like, the hex bar allows you to lift a lot of weight, but that's probably 250 at least on the hex bar.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's very, very good.
Yeah, good high bar squats. Also that kind of overhead side bend thingy. So obviously for javelin throwers, the shoulders are going to take a beating. It's so strange that throwing, which is probably one of the things that took us from being the least dangerous animal to probably one of the most dangerous animals, was death from afar. But then your rotator cuff is just made of magic string, you know? So it's so strange how it's the most important thing. We're the only ones who are able to propel projectiles from afar that we can just pick up off the ground in a meaningful manner that can kill things. Like, I know there's some like lizards that can spit at you or whatever, and some snakes, and I'm sure some of the other primates can throw, but we can throw, you know? We can like throw sharp sticks at people with accuracy.
I think the real thing is, Garf, is when all that evolutionary change was happening, lads didn't have 250 high bar squats and putting insane amounts of power through that same shoulder.
They probably did, though. I guarantee you they were more powerful at the throwing.
Yeah, it's likely they did.
Like, Neanderthals were very likely much stronger than us.
Yes.
Like, they...
I think it's they probably had stronger shoulders then as well.
But like
that tendon and ligament integrity in the shoulders, hanging off trees, climbing rocks.
I bet
they're just more prepared.
But I bet you, like, you're just like fucked if it happened. If you just tore your rotator cuff, it's like, oh,
you're done.
Well, it sucks.
Oh, it's so unfortunate.
Very unfortunate for you. Unless everyone was ambidextrous.
I wonder, is his skin warm to wear?
Jesus Christ. Here we've got Zach Skinner. So he is a Paralympian from the Team GB, and he's a long jumper, and he sent us this 150 kilo hang clean. It's crazy, very, very impressive. He's got some very impressive speed on him, and he's making a gun for the Paralympics. And he sent us this 150, and it's super impressive. It's a great clean, a great hang power clean.
It's such a good clean. Like, 150 kilos for most amateur weightlifters, or even most serious weightlifters, is not to be sniffed at. You know, like, people are training hard to get there. In this case, a long jumper, very light body weight, usually longer and taller and limmier athletes, and this is just such a legitimate weight to be doing for that. It's a tip of the cap to it. It's so good.
Yeah, so he makes some very, very interesting videos on his Instagram. He puts a lot of effort into them, the edits, and it's obviously, it's tough out there to be an Olympian in a sport where you're probably not getting a host of support. And now Team GB too take largely good care of their athletics athletes, but it's not easy. It's not an easy life by any means.
And so you have to have that mullet, protect from all the haters coming behind you.
The mullet. So here we've got Jonah Heinula, who's a Finnish athlete. We can't quite figure out what sport they play, but this is a medicine ball. This is a medicine ball. This is not a basketball. So obviously if it was a basketball, we wouldn't be including it in the new show. But she's throwing a medicine ball into that full length of, well, it looks like the full length of a basketball court at least.
It is the full length, isn't it?
That looks like it to me.
Like, she's standing on what looks like the back end of a badminton court. It's pretty much the full length of a basketball court. Having used a lot of medicine balls in the past, that looks like it's probably a 4 kilo medicine ball. Maybe.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 kilo medicine ball. It is insane.
No, that's...
Also to straight in. Just nothing but net.
Yeah, I feel like this got a few attempts, to be fair.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you're throwing medicine balls, you only get so many attempts before you're not making the whole length of that court.
Yes. The one thing that did come to mind in this is why those facility managers, when they're like managing the large sporting arenas, they're like, no, there's no way those rugby lads are left in there now today. Because this is what happens.
So the translation is now, and then it's like toss the net or something. The translation's obviously very bad, or into the net. So Finnish is an interesting language of its own. So moving on, we've got Hafthor Bjornsson. I'm sure a lot of you seen this by now. He pulled 456 kilos on the elephant bar at the Arnold. Now, I'm pretty sure he's not wearing a suit, and in one of his posts, he said, "Can 505 fall this year raw?"
And yes, I think Hafthor is slowly becoming full Thor again. He is. He is.
How long were you thinking about that one?
Last 3 days.
Yeah.
He is looking massive.
It was so good because you didn't even sound nervous when you said the joke you were thinking about.
No, I practiced that for a long time.
Half-Thor is becoming full Thor.
Full Thor.
So 456, 1,006 pounds for our Americans and Canadians, actually, who often get forgotten in the abuse of pounds.
No, what I really like, I think this is probably where big, massive deadlifts should lie. Like, it's not crazy high off the ground. It's also not a stiff IPF style bar. I think to a certain extent you do need those accommodations. Is this an elephant bar?
Yes, yeah.
Like, I think this is pretty much what, and you get to use straps or whatever you want to use for it. I love the fact that he's going to do it raw or try and do it raw.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying the other week.
Yeah, like it makes it so much more, not achievable, but relatable for the normal person. Like myself and I have been training and coaching for a long, long time. We still have not a notion what a deadlift suit adds to your deadlift. And I think giving to someone the ability to use straps, maybe use a belt if they want to use it, but just have it some way regulated where you can compare that deadlift across the last 20 heaviest deadlifts and have a fairly good idea who's the strongest or what's the most impressive.
What's interesting is people are like, oh, using straps and stuff, but this just used to be a thing anyone cared about in strongmen up until like a few years ago, until Instagram obviously became a bit more popular with this kind of things. There's people talking about why they use straps and stuff, but this was always part of strongmen. No one ever gave a fuck if strongmen use straps because the weights were so big. It doesn't fucking matter, you know. And yeah, straps add some amount, but very likely Hafthor can pull this mixed grips without straps. Like there's a certain threshold of what equipment you use matters, you know. And in our opinion, using the deadlift suit does take it away from you. And from what people have told us, you know, deadlift suit can add anywhere between 10 and 20. But, you know, I can put on a pair of straps and I can't pull 456. But you might be like, oh, Hafthor is coming back, you know.
The thing that comes to mind with the straps thing is like everybody sees people using like tacky when they're lifting the stones. They'll see people use chalk when they're lifting barbells for snatch and clean jerk or whatever, and nobody really cares, like, because it doesn't really matter. They're kind of small ergogenic aids. Straps matter if you have a terrible grip, but as Gareth said, he's probably going to be able to mix grip that, or if he wanted to absolutely tear his hands apart, I guarantee you he could hold onto a hook grip and ruin himself and do the exact same thing, you know. It just allows them to train a bit more. It obviously helps a bit, but it doesn't matter.
Now, what does matter is Hafthor's 195 kilos. So he was 207 when he did 501. And there he is with 195 kilos body weight at just with abs.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
I think so. People obviously in the comments of this and the kind of general chat around this is like, oh, how crazy it is, how wild it is, how many peds there must be in play here, how it's so out of this world. But you have to remember that Hafthor's been a massive human being so many times and for so long in the past, you know. Like, obviously, he's been over 200 kilos with abs for much of the World's Strongest Man competitions. He's been even heavier than that in the past without abs. But you're talking about an athlete who is well developed, who has all of that muscle memory, who has all of that genetic transcription that happened from all the training he's done over the last 15 or 20 years. And then you add in all the other things, like he has paid nutritionists, probably he has a paid chef, he definitely has physiologists and people who help him with his other protocols on the payroll. And then suddenly this is incredibly impressive, but it's not insane by any means, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility or not to be expected for somebody in his case.
Yeah, so I think he might have been a little bit softer the last time he was this heavy, so it looks even a little bit leaner this time. So I'm sure as the years have gone on, he's learned some things and he's improved the experiences, and I'm sure he's improved all the other aspects of that. And, you know, when you look at the Instagram comments, it's important to remember that most people don't think like the dumbest Instagram comments. It's important to remember that most people are actually just relatively like, oh yeah, cool. like if you look at our comment section, most of the time you're like, yep, people are just nice and normal and everyone appreciates what's going on. And it's very important to remember that the Instagram comments are just, sometimes they're just incredible.
But also the negative comments get pushed way more than the positive ones.
Yeah, because like there's a top comment there that has hard work with syringes, which I assume means injectable L-carnitine or something. But that's like 45 likes, but then there's a comment, imagine talking shit or something like this, and it's like 1,045
Yeah, and
likes or
it's
something.
still down lower.
So it's good to see that, it's good to see that most people are just pretty reasonable, which is actually great that it's like that.
The reasonable gang.
So here we've got Con Dweisvig, Polish lifter. I think I said that right.
You're on the ball with the pronunciation again today, aren't you?
I really don't think
You're
I
on
am.
a roll.
I really don't think so. With a 385 kilo back squat at 122 kilos. So that's high bar. And he's really, like, this is a nice deep squat. I wasn't expecting this. Someone sent this in. I, to be honest, wasn't expecting him to hit this kind of squat, but I was very pleasantly surprised.
No, this is a bloody gorgeous squat.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's funny, especially when you see the initiation of that squat. It is the very, very slow and controlled descent. And I know we've other squats coming up later that kind of emulate the same thing or mirror the same thing. And when you see that, typically you don't think this is going to be the deepest squat I see today, or you don't think this is going to be way below parallel, because a lot of the time people slow down that descent so they can stop at bang on parallel and they can turn around the squat quite easily, so they don't build up the same momentum, they don't need the same braking force, and they can turn the bar around or turn themselves around a small bit easier. In this case, he just keeps going.
So he said thanks to this training session, he now believes he can squat 400 kilos weighing under 130 kilos. So,
Oh my God.
very interested to see where that goes. I hadn't heard of him before this. So this is one of the great things about people sending us stuff, is that we just get way more quality stuff. Now, here's probably one of the most impressive squats we'll see in a long time. It's 320 kilos by a lifter who we've had on before, Jae-hun, who is a South Korean bodybuilder. But this is 320 high bar, and he's literally millimeters from bottoming out to the bottom of the squat. So 320 kilos high bar as a non-super. I'm not sure quite what he weighs, but he's certainly not. He doesn't look to me like he's more than 120 kilo kind of weight.
No way, no.
This is incredible.
This is pretty much guaranteed to be one of the most impressive squats we're going to see this year.
It has to be, unless Tantau comes out and does like 330.
There's so many things. Not a super heavy.
I don't think he's a super heavy.
Not a strength athlete.
Yeah.
Or a power athlete. He's a bodybuilder.
Yes.
Not wearing weightlifting shoes and getting that deep. Also, just being in incredibly good shape and not like massively heavy or massively kind of overweight or carrying a lot of additional body fat, which doesn't make a difference, but it actually does make a difference. If you're just a squatting athlete getting as big as you possibly want or getting as kind of fluffy as you want, it's a lot easier than being incredibly lean, maintaining an incredible physique and squatting those big weights as well.
Like, to put 320 high bar into perspective as even a non-super is crazy. There was a video, I'm actually going to find that now we're on the subject.
Yeah, like we talked about, obviously, the non-supers in weightlifting and their heaviest ever squats. We talked about Artem Antropov, we talked about Tantau, and the kind of the unsanctioned or the unwritten race that's going on there at the moment with the 320, the 321. Obviously, Tashiki's in that, the 322. But this is a bodybuilder who's right up there. Same quality of squat.
Yeah.
Same phenomenal technique.
So this is Stefan Botev. This was in the run-up to the 1988 Olympics. So actually just made me think of this because Vintage Lifts put this up. This is 300 kilos for a double. Botev is 110 kilos here. And this was the training camp, not Tokyo, for Seoul in 1988. And they didn't actually get to compete for reasons. Whole team got banned. But anyway, or they pulled the whole team because some of the lifters were getting banned or something. It doesn't matter now. But he was a junior here. But Stefan Botev is one of the best weightlifters ever. So we've seen him squat 320. I don't think we've seen him squat more than that. I'm sure he probably hit a bit more. So putting in, 320 high bar as a non-super anywhere is for a good range of motion is insane. That just made me think of that Stefan Botev, who's one of my faves. So shout out to Jay Hun, who probably isn't getting a lot of show in the English-speaking audience. Here we've got Sir Dave, 400 by 5 mixed grip conventional deadlift.
Mixed grip conventional and technically perfect deadlift at over 400 kilos.
It's way ridiculous.
What in God's name is going on? He says hungry AF. Hungry for what? There's no more weights left.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
where I want to know what Dave's plan is. Like, these are insanely good. This deadlift is really, really good. If you're a strength training athlete, even if you're a track and field athlete looking for some S&C and looking for what your deadlift should look like, these are really good. Keeps the knees forward, that kind of contrast between clean pull or clean deadlift and standard conventional deadlift. He does a great job of keeping his legs engaged, keeping those knees forward. But also, I think the big thing you should be looking at here is you're going to be doing deadlifts reps. And a lot of the time we see, particularly non-strength sports athletes, doing their high rep deadlifts. There's a massive deviation for them between first rep and last rep or second last rep. And it is something that degrades their training. It leads to increased lower back fatigue, leads to increased CNS fatigue because you're having to work so much harder when you're pulled out of position. So for those reasons, you should be looking to the powerlifters, particularly powerlifters like Sir Dave, who are very, very technically perfect, and try to emulate them as much as you can.
Now, John Hack was in the animal cage at the Arnold, and he equaled his best ever deadlift. So this is 415 kilos. John Hack competes as a 90 kilo lifter. I don't know if he gets quite to that 100 kilo body weight, but he's certainly below that, I think usually in double digits. And this is equaling his best ever deadlift.
I love that the animal cage is still a thing.
Yes.
And it's still just that chain link fence around it. I love that they haven't made it into this kind of big flashy stage with loaded neon lights. As it's become more popular over the years, the deadlift itself, the shocking thing here is how fast it moves off the floor.
So I really hope John hits a PB deadlift. So obviously he was 8 weeks out from competition, so it was towards the end of that week. So I'd love if he had like 420 or something. We were just talking last week about John Hack being one of the greatest powerlifters of all time, and probably will ever be realistically, unless someone comes along who's even more crazier. So, John does all the things that kind of make his feats just a little bit more legit. Conventional deadlifts, he's high bar squatting stuff. He doesn't have a crazy wide bench grip. He doesn't have a massive arch, and he's in that kind of double digits body weight, so he's moving things which are crazy. So imagine a 420 in competition, which I think he definitely could do. But he's really he's kind of at the top end of just how fucking strong you can be in the strength lifts.
Yeah,
it
really is.
How much more can he get out of lifting without being bigger?
Yeah, he's definitely up there at sitting at the table with the strongest human beings in the world. I love as well, he says, even got me to show some emotion. Sorry about that.
My bad. So here we've got the 1 rep max, or Maxon Sheeter, who is great squatter, squatting legit as well, just as we're on the subject of just having good squats. This is 565, which is 255 kilos. And he's doing a set of 7 here, and he also did 2x6 to the same weight. But this is significantly below his max. But I did think it was quite a nice set, so I wanted to include it.
Yeah, like we've said it about Max or Maxon numerous times. Every time his squat is on the new show, just how good it is, just how deep it is for a low bar squat. And I'll say it again because it needs to be said. Everybody who's low bar squatting, you can get this kind of depth. You can get this kind of range of motion, and you should be striving towards this. Like, Max is a young lifter, but he is incredibly strong. He probably has more muscle mass than you. If he can get this deep, you definitely can too. Yeah, and he does it in the flat shoes, which is something we've talked about a bit for low bar squatters. It really kind of goes on a case by case basis. Like, he might put on a pair of heeled weightlifting shoes, or you might sacrilegiously call them squat shoes, which you shouldn't ever say that. But he might put them on and might totally throw him off his positions. Whereas, due to his just particular lever lengths and where the barbell is and how he squats, the flat shoes might just be perfect. He might feel the ground better. He's those toes straight ahead. So, he's really sticking on the ground for legitimate squats, which is something we're big fans of. Now, lastly, sticking with legitimate squats, last but certainly not least,
We've got Nicholas Dupreez with this 410 kilo warm up, is what he said. 903 pounds squat. Again, he also squats and flats. Interesting enough, I think he's in the Vivos. The Nicholas is really. Nicholas doesn't, I feel like, get enough recognition.
No, I really think he doesn't.
It's crazy. A few more comps under his belt, and I think we might see him get a bit of that.
Yeah, I've no idea how big the competition powerlifting scene is in South Africa. If you're watching from South Africa, you might let us know. But I feel like he doesn't get, for how insanely good his numbers are and how insanely competitive he is internationally, I don't know how he's not like a household name in powerlifting. Calling something that's 410 kilos a warm-up squat is... Somebody says it's uncalled for in the comments, and it really is.
It looks like an opener.
Yeah.
It looks like something you see just kind of first attempt at a competition. He's doing the powerlifting series in 7 weeks out. I wonder if that's what John Hack is doing. Wait, is that abs? Abs, is that your thing? Is it?
I think it is.
Let's see if that's the...
I hope it is.
I'd love to go, but
it is.
Dublin is just so far away, and like I just hate going to Dublin. You know, it's like I'd love to go.
Dublin makes country people feel things that aren't comfortable.
They're very loud as well, like, and
Very
they've like
loud,
sometimes
a lot
they've
of people.
uncontrolled fire. You know.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I'm not allowed near again since the incident. But and also those neon lights. See, look, his gym is so cold. The gym is so cold. He's wearing a hat. You know.
That's why they have the flamethrowers at the competition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
We should really go to that.
No, I'm not going. It's too far away. So, if you want to get in on the S&C or weightlifting camp, send us an email. As always, brought to you by the Sika Strength app on iOS and Android. Speaking on the subject of legitimate squats, check out the Road to Anywhere Part 1 or Part 2 for your squat. Front squat program, front squat specific program will be coming to the app. Lots of people have run the RTA for front squats. Usually see about a 15 kilo PB on the front squat, but we can make a better program for that. It's not really meant for front squats, even though people do it. And you're sick if you're doing sets of 10 on the front squat, but it helps. And there will be a low bar specific program because the app just gives us more options to have more specific streams of that. And there's some different things the low bar needs that will work better specifically for a low bar. But check that on the app. They'll all be coming in the future on RTA 1 and 2 are on the app right now, iOS and Android.